There is a story for everyone here because every story matters. Welcome everyone to this Storybox. This is the place to be if you are a lover of stories, learning new and interesting things, and if you want to grow abundantly. My name is Jay Phantom, and I believe it's my purpose to help you realize your worth and become the greatest and best version of you possible. I am grateful that you're here today. Now let's journey into this Storybox together and hear more about whose story will be unboxed today. We all wear masks, some with makeup, some with smiles, some with wives or husbands, cars or clothes. We hide from the world and from ourselves. We hide from our truths behind our eyes, running always from a real. But somewhere there, where truth meets courage, we are waiting to be found. My friends, welcome back to a very exciting episode of this Storybox. It's exciting and it's a special one for me because I have a great poet and also now a good friend. His name is Atticus, or he goes by the name Atticus. Now, if you have seen or read any of Atticus's words, you will no doubt feel how powerful and moving they really are. I mean, that was just one of the poems that I read out from his Instagram page, but he's got many, many more. He's got a number of New York Times best-selling books, and his story is really incredible. Even though he is anonymous, he is a very down-to-earth and humble human being that loves to give. And he gives so much with his words and with his art that I feel like it is time for me to give back to him and share with you guys his incredible journey. This is a conversation that many of you might not have actually heard him share any of this stuff before, and I really, really enjoyed speaking to him. But for those of you that don't know who Atticus is, he's an anonymous poet. He's the first actual anonymous human being that I have had the pleasure of speaking to on the Storybox. It was a real fun time, I have to say so. But Atticus is the author of several beloved New York Times books such as Love Her Wild, The Dark Between Stars, and The Truth About Magic. Atticus evokes a sense of nostalgia and romance throughout his work that inspires readers to find the beauty and artistry found across the many extraordinary facets of life. Gwyneth Paltrow's GOOP also listed his books as the #1 poetry books to read. Imagine having that on your resume, right? But Atticus is an artistic trailblazer who has also created a digital community and space for readers to rediscover themselves and the world around them. Atticus quickly amassed a digital audience of over 3 million followers, including Kim Kardashian, Shawn Mendes, Carly Kloss, Alicia Keys, Emma Roberts, Shay Mitchell, Lucy Hale, the Chainsmokers, and Vin Diesel, among Elon Musk too, including many, many others. His social media posts receive over 25 million impressions and reach over 3.5 million per week. It's absolutely incredible. But one of my favorite parts in this conversation, my friends, is the fact that he does get really authentic and he does share vulnerable moments about his story, about his life. And he also shares a poem with you guys at the very end, which was a real treat for myself to actually hear him say and share. But I have no doubt that it will be a treat for you guys listening. So my friends, if you do get something from this conversation, please share it around. If you are a fan of Atticus, even better. I am a huge fan now, even if I wasn't before. But please don't hold that against me. So my friends, everything that you need is all in the show notes below. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. Once again, it goes a long way in supporting not just the community of the Storybox, but also supporting Atticus's community too, which I know he would be extremely grateful for. All right, my friends, you know what time it is. It is time to journey with me into the Storybox. Atticus is going to evoke a sense of definitely nostalgia. There's going to be a bit of talk of love in here too, which is amazing. Vulnerability, you name it, as we listen, learn, and grow from the wisdom, the advice, and the incredible story of none other than Atticus.
Oh, thanks, Jay. It's so nice to be here.
I was gonna ask you. You're not Shawn Mendes, are you? You sound like him.
I wish. I actually know Shawn. He's a good friend of mine, but I wish. He's way better looking than I am.
Oh wow, man! But imagine having all these people in your corner and on the resume to sort of endorse your work. I mean, it's pretty incredible. But you yourself, man, you sound incredibly humble. And I'm grateful for the fact that you are here today and you're speaking to me all the way. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. You're based in, I believe, Texas at the moment. So it's really great, man. And the first question that I do want to ask you to sort of start off this conversation with is, what does success look like for you?
That's a good question. Well, I think it's changed over my life. And, when I was younger, I think I was like a lot of people. I think success was kind of like recognition and celebrity. And, as I kind of grew up and was more exposed to like celebrity and such, I think it really changed for me. And I would say that like success now is just like living a fulfilled life, it's balance. It's, do you like what you're doing? And so, those are kind of the gauges which I judge my own success by, kind of how happy am I day to day doing what I do.
So what makes you happy at the moment?
I love writing, man. Like I love writing poetry. I get a lot of joy out of it. And it surprises me sometimes with how long I've been writing that I still enjoy it. But I really do. And so, the more I can just like write, the happier I am, really.
Do you write every day?
No, I don't. I should. But I kind of have to life gets in the way. I think I'm probably like a lot of writers, artists. You have to kind of like carve out time for it. It's like life kind of like elbows its way in, and I wish I could write more than I do.
Do you find that sort of impacts your level of creativity at all? If you do have to sort of carve out time to sit there and write rather than just be free in the moment and just have, I guess, free flowing time, if that makes sense?
It's a great question. I think it's important to like, when you're feeling that flow is to like use that and like immediately start creating, whether, you're a poet and you're writing, or if you're an artist, or a musician, you play. I think it's important to just like be aware of yourself and be like, hey, like I'm in flow right now. I gotta create. Yeah. But I also think that it really pays like to set that time and really just like be deliberate about it, and not every time you're going to, be able to create, but giving yourself that space, I think is really important and can be, that's how you create.
Have you ever been in a moment in your life whether like you've had this creative urge and you've been in this kind of, you just had that spark of inspiration and you just want to write, but you're extremely busy and you just said, hey, sorry guys, I've got to go. I've got to write something down here. Have you ever had moments like that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it happens to me at like a party, like, events or something a lot. And I'll just like go outside and write on my phone or whatever. You just never know when an inspiration will hit. And, my girlfriend kind of laughs because she kind of is like aware of it and like will be, traveling or something like that. And I'll just be like on my phone and she'll be like, no, not to interrupt. Cause she's like, oh, he's writing for a second. He's doing his weird thing.
She's good. I've found moments like that, man. It'd be like 12 o'clock in the morning here in Sydney, Australia. And I'll just like wake up with this urge to write something, just like this moment of inspiration. And
amazing.
I've had to like I'll put one of my journals beside my bed, or I'll have my phone as well. And it's kind of like you're half asleep sometimes, but like when you wake up in the morning, it's like, I actually wrote that. Like what was going on is like in this moment of dazed inspiration.
It's like cryptic. You kind of have to like figure out what you were trying to say and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
one
do
of
that
those
a lot.
things. It's kind of like what I like to call when inspiration or creativity comes, you gotta embrace it. You don't fight it. The moment you fight it, you lose it and you regret it later on.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think Woody Allen's famous for writing like little sparks of ideas on pieces of paper and notepads and things, and then just like putting them all in a box. And he has to kind of like put together the puzzle of what he was trying to say in a lot of those ideas.
And if people know of Woody Allen's stuff, you know how creative that guy is. I mean, with his films and with his just writing in general. I mean, it's kind of hard to follow along sometimes. For me personally.
Absolutely. Probably why. Yeah.
Yeah. But for you, man, like where did this start for you? Where did you get the urge to start writing poetry? Has it always been something that has been part of your life, or is it sort of like, have you adapted it into your life somewhere along the line?
Yeah, I mean, no, I definitely didn't grow up writing poetry, and I think it surprised me more than anyone maybe that I started writing. It happened rather serendipitously. I went on a trip to France years ago. It was probably like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. And through a friend of a friend, I met this actor, a guy named Michael Madsen. And he's like, if you don't know who that is, he's like the bad guy from Kill Bill and Reservoir Dogs and a Justin Bieber music video. He's like really incredible actor. He's done so much, and him and I became friends, and he taught me a lot about fame and the kind of negative aspects and sides of fame, and in our time together, he told me about poetry and how poetry had, like, in his words, saved his life. And he'd struggled a lot with addiction and alcohol and things. And poetry had saved his life. He even put out a book of poetry. And for me, I was like, wow, here's this badass American kind of hero who is writing poetry. And that was like kind of the first time in my life that I gave myself permission to explore that more vulnerable side of myself and explore poetry. And, I grew up loving like Jack Kerouac and Bukowski and Hemingway and Hunter S. Thompson, and I loved their words. I loved their quotes and epigrams. I just never kind of imagined that I would have anything to say. And so, on that trip, a few days later, I was in Paris for the very first time in my life. And I was so inspired by that city. And I just, started writing. I saw some things I thought were beautiful, and I started writing, and I never expected it to turn into anything. And was kind of very surprised and humbled when, it kind of did.
Was it hard for you to sort of start writing, especially about the subject matter that you do write about?
I felt it came pretty naturally. I think, you said it best, when inspiration hits. I felt really inspired, and I felt, Paris is an easy city to write about because it's, you don't have to use your imagination. You kind of just write what you see. And I think that was helpful first when I started, but yeah, certainly, as I started posting it online and I started posting on Instagram, it was hard to be vulnerable and to remind myself to be vulnerable and to deal with those kind of those subjects. If that makes sense. And I think from the beginning, the fact that I chose to do it anonymously helped that in a big way.
Which is, I have a number of sort of paths that I do want to go down from those responses. But one of the questions I did want to ask you that sort of might help go down these other paths is, you mentioned there was sort of difficult to be vulnerable. I mean, when was the moment that you felt like you were being the most vulnerable with your writing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I can't remember who said it first, but Tim Ferriss, I think it was, had a line that was kind of like, you know, whenever I'm scared to post because I think it's me being too vulnerable is when I know that I'm onto something. Because like, kind of his point behind that was like, you know, we're all very vulnerable creatures. And like, if you post something that's really vulnerable, chances are someone's going to really connect with it and it's going to get through the clutter. And I really took that to heart and, you know, and that really helped me be vulnerable. And I think again, like, you know, cause I was wearing a mask, I wasn't writing to try to be anything. I wasn't writing to try to be cool. I was just like, I was honestly feeling these things. And, you know, this is kind of like how I was seeing the world. And so I just posted it. And, you know, I think and hope that's kind of what people connected to. It was just like, oh, that's a real feeling. I get that. I felt something like that. Which is what I love, about other people's writing is when I'm like, wow, that's really vulnerable. And that, you know, Hemingway says, you know, truth. Write the truth.
Speak your own truth. It's far more powerful than living in a lie and then trying to please other people.
Yeah.
Your words are extremely powerful. So is your life, how you present yourself. And I think social media has created this false sense of reality for many people. It's kind of like everyone sees the good lives that people are living, but they don't really see the bad, the struggles, the hurts, everything that someone is going through, which sort of leads me to my next question for you, Atticus, is it's sort of in line with being vulnerable. Have you ever sort of thought, am I really being my true self, my vulnerable self by being anonymous on social media? Like, do you think that it'll have a greater impact for people to actually read it, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, that's a really, really, powerful question. Yeah, I do think so. I mean, it works differently for different people. I think this has made sense for me, and I don't think I could do what I do necessarily, or I wouldn't be as true to myself if I wasn't anonymous, if that makes sense. Because I think I would just be constantly writing for someone else, you know, and to try, like exactly like you said with social media, you know, you can't help but just like post pictures of your kind of like highlight reel, they say, you know, and you're kind of posting for other people. You're not kind of posting for yourself. And I think that being anonymous has really helped me just be honest with myself and not write for anybody else, but write for myself. And you know, it's definitely an imperfect science, and something that I, you know, just like have to challenge myself to do. But yeah, I think altogether it has helped me be more vulnerable.
You say on your Instagram, sending love from the shadows, which I love. I mean, it doesn't mean people don't have to see your face in order to feel the love that you're giving out there for people. I think that's an important lesson in of itself. Like, if you don't know someone personally, you can still feel that they do want to help. I mean, like by your words. And the thing that I appreciate that when I was researching and looking at all your poetry is I connected with the power of love, like when you were talking about sheer love. And I think that in our world today, people are craving that sense of love. I think we've learned about it in like the whole pandemic even is we need that love to, I guess you could say, to comfort us, if that makes sense, and to make us feel like we do belong. I mean, so I guess I sort of want to steer it towards you speaking about love, and what have you noticed about loving yourself more as opposed to loving another person? What's the difference there for you?
Wow. I need to unpack that. You said a lot of really beautiful things. It's like very, very well said.
I do that sometimes.
You're a poet.
I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah. So, love again has really evolved. I think it's kind of like success. Love has really evolved for me, as I've grown and learned, and, through relationships and failed relationships, and the meaning of love has really evolved for me. And, I think I'm like a lot of people when I, was younger, and I kind of had these kind of naive views of what love is. And love was just kind of like throwing yourself into another person. And, speaking for myself, I was like drawn to relationships where I was scared I was going to lose the person. That's like kind of what excited me, is like something that, I couldn't ever like feel safe with. That's my own stuff, but that was kind of my definition of love, was just like this desire of not being like left. And then, to your question about like self-love, and, it took me most of my life to try to love myself and realize that I was worth loving, and realize that like the true definition and my true definition of love didn't come out of this like fear of losing someone, but should come out of like trust and companionship. And like those are the foundations of what real love is. And, it's taken me a long, long time to kind of figure that out, and a lot of like, self work. But, I found in my life, if I could like give like one suggestion, is the times that I've found love and real love are the times where I've come out of a relationship and worked entirely on myself, put it all into myself, and that kind of like self-love. And then that just like makes you, I think, desirable. And also just, it puts you in a position to meet someone, as a whole, rather than like a piece of yourself, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, man. And I think I've been there as well. I mean, I've had several failed relationships, and I've learned so much about myself when those relationships failed. And I'm like, well, I thought in the moment before they failed, I thought that I was the best thing that ever happened to that person. It was kind of like this naive, proudful, egotistical attitude. But then when it sort of broke, then I sort of crumbled as well. Then I had to sort of do this, like I didn't love myself for who I was straight after that. So I had to go on this long journey of figuring out, number one, who I was, and why do I want to live, firstly, and secondly, what do I love the most about myself? And it takes a long time. But when I often say to people, firstly, you got to forgive yourself for any wrongdoing in the first place that you might have held on to in the past relationship, like causing the person pain. I mean, you can't change the past. You can only arrive at the place of forgiveness. And then that's where true love shows up. I mean, forgiveness in of itself is an act of love, I believe. That's what I've learned in my young 24 years of existing and still going and learning along the way, man. But I'm curious for you, man, like what do you love the most about yourself now?
That's a great question. I would say I love my journey, because it hasn't been easy, and it has been a struggle, and I kind of haven't given up. But like ultimately, it's a really real story, and I think I share the kind of journey with a lot of people that go on these kind of similar ups and downs journey of life. I think it's kind of like the ebb and flow of life. And so I think it's like that it's real, and it's just it's mine, and it wasn't easy, and it won't be easy, and you just kind of keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, I say that life is like a living roller coaster ride. You have those climbs to the top that are sometimes slow, and then you got the steep descents that are really, really fast, and you got those quick turns, jagged edges. And then I say, so strap yourself in. It's going to be one hell of a bumpy ride, but it's going to be one of the best rides ever, man. Like,
I mean, that's well said again. It's, are you sure you're not a poet?
No, man, I love stories. Like that's ever since I was a little kid growing up, it's just always been a passion of mine. And I guess you could say a love of mine is getting to the heart of a person and then seeing and hearing about what they've been through, because that's a human condition, right? We've all been through incredible struggles. We've all been through a journey, and I love listening to that and then taking things away of, hey, I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone in my struggles. And then if I can feel that way, how many others can feel that way too? So that's an important distinction between all of us, I think, is that we've all got hurt. We've all got sufferings going on, but I think if we all come together and share those stories with one another, whether it's poetry, I mean, there's so many forms of art that helps us all like form that story, if that makes sense. Like you've got film, you've got poetry. It's a way of expressing it. So for me, man, it's more about the love of story than it is poetry, although my mum is a poet. Believe it or not.
Is she really?
She is, yeah.
Wow.
So I sort of encouraged her to write poetry or inspired her, if I can say that, to write. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it kind of runs in the family, except I didn't get the poetry gene or bug or whatever. Anyway. But
how cool. Well, I love to read her stuff.
Yeah, I got to send it to you. I got to send you my stuff as well, man. Keen to hear your thoughts on it. Because
I'd love that.
I don't want to take away from your story right now. I feel like I am, but yeah, my whole journey has just been absolutely crazy. So I won't spoil anything for you. I want to sort of shock you. But yeah, for you, man,
I'm excited to hear.
Sorry, man, you go. My bad.
Oh, I said I'm excited to hear. That's great.
Likewise, man. Well, I sort of want to ask you, because you mentioned that you've had some down moments or some tough times. Are you able to share one that sort of impacted you the most, that gave you a renewed perspective on your life?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was, there's one that kind of, that sticks out to me. I mean, there's a few, but, one was very profound. And that was, I lost a friend in high school, that I was very close with, and we went on a camping trip, and, he ended up drowning, and, it was just a very hard thing to do and to process, especially in that age. It's stuck with me forever. And I often think about him and kind of try to live, a more rich life, kind of for him and with him. And I think that, I think death is a very, very, very powerful thing in reminding you to live and to reminding you of how finite life can be.
Have you ever looked at or tried to understand why we have death in the first place?
Yeah, well, I mean, not specifically, but I think, I think all poets spend a lot of their time trying to answer that exact question with varying degrees of success. But, I truly think that, death serves a real purpose in like I said, reminding us to live, and, if we all lived forever, life would be very different.
Yeah. That is very true, man. Like I've sort of wanted to ask so many people, like, I think this side of eternity, the question that I do want to ask God when I do die and go to heaven is, why did you create death in the first place? Well, I've just got so many questions about death. But
I don't think you're the only one.
no, it's just one of those things, man. Yeah, but anyway, moving the conversation along a little bit. The power of words, I think, is a very interesting thing. How have you been able to, I guess, better your understanding of words? I mean, do you look up a dictionary or something like that, or how do you form the right kinds of words to have it make an impact like the kind of impact that you do, if that makes sense again?
Yeah. Well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I would say that I read a lot. I love reading other people's work, and I know that Hunter S. Thompson, to beat writer's block, sometimes he would get some of his favorite books and he'd take out his typewriter and just start writing them out word for word. And he's like, once you kind of get in their flow, it can really help. But I write a lot and I read a lot, and then again, like I try to have fun with it, when I'm writing, and I just try to mess around a lot, and I try to move words and kind of like mix things in ways that maybe, they're not supposed to go. And I think that I just kind of enjoy that part of it. But I think I'm always learning. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to get better. But ultimately I just like enjoy doing it, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And that's why I do it.
So in your opinion, what makes a great poet as opposed to a good poet? Is it mainly to do with the kind of words that you use, or is there something more to it than that?
I think a good poet tries, and a great poet just is. And I have to try. Bukowski said that he's like, the trick is not to try. And, I think what he meant by that is that, you don't ever go out there and try to write the best poem that's ever been written. Go just write, for fun, and find your voice and such. But yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, I think that really, really great poets, they have something that they need to say, and it would just explode inside them if they didn't say it. And I think that's why they kind of write with such a passion and such, that'd be my best answer.
Do you feel like anything is missing currently in your life?
No, I think, I think my life is always a work in progress, but I'm really trying to live balanced. I'm really trying to give back, and, just try to be the best I can be, and show up with friends and family and relationships. But I think we can always get better. We can always progress. And yeah.
That's very true, man. Who in your life, because you mentioned relationships there and your friends, you have a lot of interesting friends, as we alluded to in the very beginning, which is honestly amazing, man. They're all from a distance, I can see that they are very humble people like yourself. And I always appreciate that, man. Like the whole celebrity aspect, I think we idolize and we all worship them to so much so, and it gets out of hand a lot of the time. And what I've learned by doing this is that, once again, we're all human beings. Like, without the jobs we do, what would we be? We're still blood and bone and flesh and, our personalities, you name it. Like, we create the celebrity. That's the thing. We put them on that pedestal based on what we see. So I think humility goes a long way, and I just want to acknowledge that for you. But the question,
thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, man. It's from my heart to your heart, and saying thank you for giving me the chance today to be part of your life and to ask you these kinds of questions.
It's my pleasure.
But the question that I did want to ask you is, who in your life has made the greatest impact, whether it be emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, you name it?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. And those kind words. I'd say two people in my life that have had a big impact, and one is my mother. And I think that, secretly she was a big reason that I found poetry in the first place. I dedicated my second book to her for hiding poetry where I'd find it. And what I meant by that was, growing up, she would put it, Jack Kerouac in my bookshelf, and I would stumble across it and read it and think I found it, as teenagers need to find for themselves. And she was just really powerful in doing that. And I remember she gave me this poster of Irish playwrights and poets, and they all had quotes underneath their names. And I would just memorize them, and I loved it. And I think she left some deep seeds in there. And then, another friend who's really inspired me is Elon. And, I think him and I have been friends for quite a while, and I just find him very inspirational. But, a lot of people don't know this, but he's someone who, he is a huge fan of literature and poetry and history, and he can recite long passages and complicated poetry. It's really incredible. He's like Winston Churchill in that way. And, just starting off, he read my poetry, really early on, and he texted me and was like, "Hey man, just keep going. It's great." And that meant a lot, but I have so many friends and family close to me that have been really, really supportive, in different ways. They all kind of see Atticus as being like my authentic self in a way, and have been really supportive.
This is Elon Musk we're talking about, right?
Yeah, Elon Musk. Yeah, yeah.
I spoke with his mother the other day. Actually, her episode
May
is releasing. Yeah, May Musk.
Yeah, she's the best.
She is honestly the best.
You should have said you're having me on, because we're great friends.
I had no idea, man. Such a small world, dude. I had such a ball speaking with May. I mean, I read her book. I mean, I've got it.
Yeah, of course.
I read it in 2 days. And I mean, I was blown away by where she came from to where she is now. And how she's impacted so many people's lives. It's honestly incredible. Same with Elon. I mean,
yeah.
Man, and I had no idea he was such a fan of literature. So I think the audience is going to get a nice surprise there. Thanks for sharing that. I've always been curious about this one, but what has been the worst piece of advice you've ever received from someone? Left field question.
That's a good question. When I was first starting out, and I was going to publish my book, everybody, my publisher and my agent, kind of everybody was very much like, "Hey, you should take off your mask, and you'll be famous," kind of thing. And I think that it was very enticing to do that sometimes, just to give up the anonymity and be, just kind of come out and it's just very enticing. And I think that, I'm just glad I haven't done it. And I think it would be for the wrong reasons. And I still believe that you can kind of spread your words and spread your art without necessarily being famous. And, we didn't really touch on it, but, one of the kind of main reasons that I chose to be anonymous was because I lost a friend, who was very famous. And, it kind of rattled me at the kind of risks and dangers of fame. And so it was really just important to me to stay anonymous. But I'd say like, not necessarily the worst advice I've ever gotten, but, just kind of advice that I've gotten that I'm glad I didn't heed was, take off your mask, try to become, famous, recognized.
And you got to be true to yourself, man. You got to be authentically you and not conform to the pressures of an agent. And I mean, it's so easy to do that, isn't it? Like
so easy. It's so easy,
especially if you want it. And that wanting is sort of challenged by that I guess that person that could make it happen, so to speak. But it's like it's so much better to live authentically and be in integrity, I've found at least, and I'm sure you've found the same thing, than to go against it, because then you'd be not happy. You wouldn't be living, it'd just be like this fake existence and you'd be miserable all the time.
No, you're so right. It reminds me, a year ago or a while ago, I got a message from some guy and he was kind of mad and disgruntled. And he's like, I know who you are. I'm going to tell everybody who you are. And I was, in my head, I was just like, why though? Like you want me to be recognized, you want me to be famous. You want me to, it's like, why? You just want me to be unhappy? It was just like, it kind of boggled my mind that, most people are trying really hard to be famous. And like, I'm here saying like, hey, listen, I'm not really interested in being famous. And somebody was like, hey, I want you to be famous. It was just like,
sense.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It was just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, maybe I just don't think like that, but I want people to be happy mostly,
Which is a rare thing, man. I mean, you do have the fame, so to speak, but yet you're still you. you're still being genuine. And I think if it's one thing that people can learn from this is you can still make a difference despite the fact that you can be quote anonymous, like the world doesn't know exactly who you are, so to speak, in terms of your name, but they know your work. They know that's, I think that's more important.
That's very inspiring. I didn't realize that, what you just said about following other people and not you. It's really inspiring as well. So thank you for saying that.
And I mean, I'm not famous by any stretch of the imagination. I've still got like a long way to go, I think, but I don't want to be famous. That's another thing. I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting off on tangents here, but
I could go on for hours about it. I mean, I do think in general that, there is like such an emphasis these days on fame and recognition. And I think that people should just be really, deliberate and aware if that's what they think they want, and just make sure it is what they want. Because, I mean, Bill Murray had a line that said, if you want to become rich and famous, become rich first and see if you still want to become famous. And I think there's something to that.
And who was it as well? Jim Carrey said he wishes that everyone would get rich and famous just to see how much it doesn't satisfy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love that one.
Totally.
That was a powerful quote. Atticus, man, like my second last question for you. I know like our time is running. Appreciate
No,
you
it's
making
good.
the time, man. But would you be able to share one of your favorite poems for us? I think it like not to put you on the spot, but something that you have written recently that has sort of touched your heart the most that you could share with the audience. I think it would be powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I'll see if I can remember it. But I'll probably butcher it. But yeah, I got one that's called called My Fate, and I wrote this. My little sister was getting married, and she asked me to ordain her marriage, and she asked me to write this poem about kind of like her love with her husband and how she wanted fate to be in there. And so I wrote this poem called My Fate. Does the sun promise to shine? No, but it will. Even behind the darkest clouds, it will. And no promise will make it shine longer or brighter, for that is its fate, to burn until it can burn no more. So to love you is not my promise, it is my fate, to burn for you until I can burn no more. Yeah, that was that was my fate.
I love it, man. That's a beautiful poem. That is a beautiful
thank you.
poem. I'm probably going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day now. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, man. Okay, this is my final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. It's a hypothetical one, but I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll just call it magic for the sake of argument. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Oh, I love that. I love that a lot. You know what? I would just love it to say that I was myself. I'd love it to say that I helped people, that I at least tried to change the world for the better. I would want it to say that I laughed a lot and that I brought laughter into people's lives. And I like it to say that my poetry and things I wrote found people when they needed it most and helped them.
Love it, man. Where can people find your poetry, man? Where can people connect with you and learn more about your amazing work?
It's at Atticus Poetry on Instagram, and everything's there.
Amazing. You're not hard to find, but Atticus,
No.
man, appreciate you, all the work that you're doing, and I acknowledge that. I appreciate you enormously for your time today, for sharing your stories on the Storybox podcast.
Jay, thanks so much for being